This is Bay Radio.
And Christina is in from Blacktower Financial Management. Welcome back.
Good morning.
So it was 3 weeks away because you took part in the sort of forums, didn't you? The seminars.
I did, the Brexit seminars. They were very, very well attended. I think each of them had well over 100 people. And people learnt a lot about Brexit and about the implications for people living here.
This was with the Citizens Advice Bureau of Spain, right?
Yes. They're down in the Costa del Sol and they travelled up to Sisters to actually do the seminars. And they did give some very useful information about residencia. About if it was quite funny actually. They were saying if you are married to an EU citizen or someone from Ireland, you should get your residencia done under that. You should obviously use theirs because then you'd have freedom of movement within the EU. So she did make us all laugh. She said, if you haven't got an EU partner, go out and find one.
Really? I think one or two people may be doing that.
But there was some very, very interesting, obviously you've got to get your driving licence sorted before the end of this year, or else you'll have to take a Spanish driving test.
Yes, I mean there was the initial scare that you had to do that by the end of January, which I did.
It's now December.
Anyway.
Also with your residencia, if it hasn't got permanent on it, you need to go and get it changed so it's got permanent on it. You can do that after you've been here for 5 years. Things about freedom of movement, once Brexit happens, if you're not a resident, there's certain people that they call swallows, people who come here for the winter, etc. You'll only be able to spend 90 days in every 180 within Spain. You can't exceed 90 days, whereas at the moment it's 180 and 360. So there was some very, very interesting stuff there on, would we have to change our residencia for a TIE? And that's meant to be automatic, the Spanish government has said, but don't rush to do it because there's so many people that need to do it. If it does have to be done, they're going to do it in an order, so maybe alphabetically, I don't know how, and they'll be in touch. And that's meant to be free of charge, but in Spain I'm sure there'll be a small charge, say €10. There was some very, very interesting stuff there, and I think there's going to be more done in April. I know there's some in March down south in Madron, in Majaca and the Costa del Sol, and I think there's some more up here in April. And if you didn't attend, I would say to people, if you see the adverts in the paper, please do attend, because even I learned something and I thought I knew most about Brexit. And it just helps put people's minds at rest. You can talk to people afterwards. There's no selling. There are a few companies there that aren't related to Brexit, like funeral plans, etc. But they're just there because obviously if you live in Spain and you're worried about things like death, then they're important to have. So, but most of it was very, very informative. No selling, just purely facts. So it was very, very good.
Of course, it was officially post-Brexit, but there's the transition period till the end of the year.
Yeah, we've got the transition period to the end of the year. Obviously, they could extend the transition period, but there are, so many different things that you don't think about that could come to be, within this period. And it was just really nice to get the facts from people that know what they're talking about instead of hearing it down the pub or online or on a Facebook chat page, because that does make people worry. But what I would say, if you have got a residence card and you have been here more than 5 years, it is worthwhile getting it changed to permanent residency.
Well, you say you learned a lot from them. I've learned that those people are called swallows that come just for the...
I know, I didn't know
idea,
that.
But it makes perfect sense, obviously.
They winter in the sun. It does make sense. So, all the people in camper vans, etc., that come here maybe for more than 90 days have to be careful because they will be checking passports. And, I don't think Spain will be that strict, but you never know. We've got the Gibraltar issue. They could decide, just to enforce certain things that they never did before. So it's just better to make sure that you've got everything covered, whether you're a resident or non-resident. And as I said, there are more seminars coming up. So if you do see them, I would suggest that you register because they were all oversubscribed.
Yes,
we had to turn people away.
We did say that, so make sure you book in and get in.
And there were some people that churned up on the day, and we did try and fit them in. But it was a push, so you have to be very, very careful. So on that, we can go on to the markets.
Yes, where we're at. So I did see a chart. It was from the London Stock Exchange about where it had taken a dip with the coronavirus. I'm assuming it was mostly that. End of January, beginning of Feb. And then we crept back up a little bit. We recovered a little bit yesterday.
We're at 7.4. We're slightly down a bit today, but most of that is due to Apple. What's happened is Apple has said due to the coronavirus, its suppliers are going to be limited. Therefore, there's going to be not enough stock in the shops. Therefore, it's going to impact its next quarter's profits. So they're expecting a dip in profits, and obviously the next quarter after that, because most of the factories in China have had to close down, so they're not getting the parts. And that's going to affect lots of companies that do rely on China for their raw components or for their manufactured goods, like laptops, computers, everything that's made in China, and that has impacted the Chinese economy. It's had its worst quarter's performance since Tiananmen Square, and I think that was in 1989. Round about then. So it was. Hang on, I've got it down. I think it was about then anyway. So obviously, it's hitting the Chinese economy, because people aren't going to it for tourism. They're not being able to export goods. People are not taking their goods on board. But I think the coronavirus, as I said to you, has been blown out of all proportion. If you think between 30,000 and 60,000 a year die in the UK from flu, and how many deaths have we had worldwide from coronavirus? You know, it pales into insignificance. And people who've got the normal flu, sometimes being classified as having coronavirus, and they're saying the masks don't really help. Just wash your hands, as you said. You had the doctor in yesterday.
Yes, he covered that.
It's just, but people are overreacting. They cancelled a big technology fair in Barcelona.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Which was, I think, a slight overreaction. So that will be scheduled for later in the year. So it seems the cases are falling now. So that should blow over. The market are not low anyway, but they'll recover even more because there's good economic data out there, especially for the US and the UK with Brexit now on track, it seems. You know, companies have been given more stability. We've got the exchange rate, which did hit 120.
Yes, I had no idea that had gone up. So I think because I missed doing it yesterday. Because
and then it went down. It's gone down to stage just under. I think it's 119.
I'd say it's 120 now. 119,998.
Oh, right. So
let's round it up.
That's quite good.
That's the market rate,
and
of course.
I think the more positive news comes out about Brexit, the more Boris pays hard line, says to the EU, look, you've got to do a deal. The EU need to do a deal. They need the UK, I think, more than the UK needs Europe. Sterling is going to get stronger because Europe, if you look at it, it should be a weak currency. We should be about 125 at least, because of the problems within Europe. You know, you've got Greece still, you've got Germany on the verge of recession, you've got France, which is you've got Italy, which is technically bankrupt. So there's lots of things in Europe that are affecting it. We've got negative interest rates for a start. I heard in Sweden, if you apply for a mortgage, you actually get a negative interest rate mortgage. So effectively, they're paying you to have a mortgage.
Wow.
But that doesn't bode well for savers. But we can go into that later. But there is a lot on the horizon. And if people are getting their pensions in sterling, if you think at one time we were nearly 1 for 1, now we're at 120, it is making life easier for expats here.
As Sierra then, Bay Radio just gone 10:30, mainland Spain 9:30, the UK and Canaries. Christina Brady is in from Blacktower Financial Management. We're filming this, so it's not going out live.
I'm trying to hide behind the microphone.
Yes, you do. Well, I decided it was catching too much of me in that first bit, so I've turned it round a bit. Don't hide.
Don't.
No, you look the part there. By the way, when you just stuck your face into it then, I'm going to use that as the cutaway thing.
Oh, thank you. That was scary. That will make people go and hide in a dark shed and never come out.
No, this is, and we're getting some, we're getting to see you. Not that you're not famous enough already.
Please don't.
But also, obviously, getting some useful financial bits away. Let's get back to the sort of business world, if you like. The big story in our main news this morning about HSBC.
Yeah, they're going to cut, I think, about 35,000 jobs worldwide, mostly in the US and Europe. They're blaming Brexit, coronavirus, and the US-Chinese trade war. They've seen their profits plunge by 53% to $6 billion. Ooh, honestly, that's a huge amount of profit anyway, and their shares are down 2.2%. But banks do this restructuring. I worked in the city for numerous years for Deutsche Bank, and I worked in various departments last bit on the trading floor, and every year there was a cull of staff. There was just a changeover, and most of the banks do this on a regular basis, although that is a huge number. But if you think of their overall workforce, it's not really that much in comparison. So they do that. They say they're going to trim costs, they get rid of people, but then they tend to beef up the numbers again afterwards. They tend to get rid of not unprofitable departments, and then they'll start another department. So It's just one of those things that is cyclical within the banking industry, and you get used to it when you work there. Certain times of the year, you knew it was when there was going to be sort of a reshuffling and redundancies were going to be announced, and you just hoped you didn't turn up to work and there was a cardboard box on your desk.
Sure.
Because that's what happened. You went up to personnel, you came down, there was a box on your desk, security escorted you, you had to put all your stuff in, and that was it, you were out.
Really?
No niceties about it.
Yeah, that's the reality. I mean, we think it's a pretty sweet gig in the city there, it's decent money.
It can be,
but yeah.
Even when I worked there, it was cutthroat, and there's no sympathetic way. They don't do it in any way that is sympathetic to anybody. It's brutal. Everyone knows those people are going because they're being escorted by security guards. They're not allowed to make any phone calls. It's just get your personal belongings. They check it's just your personal belongings and go, and that's it.
This doesn't sound like the banking industry we know and love, does it?
Oh, it is. It
exactly
is cutthroat.
like
it is ruthless.
Sure.
So, and it's very stressful. So that's why they do get good salaries. And I worked there, and we used to work long hours. I know people think, we're getting paid for nothing, but most of the time we had to be there for 7 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't leave till 9 o'clock at night.
Oh no, I always see it as the jobs in the city there. It's one of those things you can only do for a certain period of your life when you're young.
Yeah, when I worked for an American bank called Bankers Trust, on the trading floor, you had to retire at 40 because they were burnt out. They were completely and utterly frazzled, and we had the highest cases of people with brain tumours. And although health and safety came in, I'm sure it's because they had all the computer screens around them all day long. But you don't know, but it could have been the stress as well. So anyway, that's the city. And then we go on to another thing. Savers have been putting money or keeping money with NS&I, National Savings and Investments, run by the UK government. That includes premium bonds. They've announced that from May, they are going to cut all the savings rates and they're going to cut all the prices on the premium bonds. So the chances of you winning have gone from 24,000 to 1 to something like 27,000 to 1. They're cutting how many top prizes there are, how many other prizes there are. So if you have premium bonds, most people come to me, they have premium bonds. I say, well, keep them. It's a liquid form of cash. As long as you're getting a return of, say, 2 or 3% a year, your little prizes, keep them. Most people now are not even going to be getting a return of 1% a year. So if you have got a bit of money in premium bonds, now is the time maybe to consider talking to a financial advisor and putting that money elsewhere, because inflation is running at over 1%. If you're not getting at least that on your savings, you are losing money day after day after day. You're losing your buying power. So, and they've cut the savings rates. I think on the direct saver it was 1%. It's now going to be 0.7. On the interest account it was 0.8. It's now going to be 0.6. So yet again, savers are going to suffer. And also we've got the Bank of England. They're going to have a meeting in March to discuss interest rates, and they could reduce them. It depends on what's happening with the figures and Brexit, but there is, a feeling that interest rates could be reduced even more. So for savers, it is a bum deal if you've got it in any account. If you look in Europe, you've got negative interest rates.
Yeah.
You've got charges on accounts now because the banks can't deposit their money overnight with the central banks, because the central banks are charging them. So what they're having to do is pass those charges on to the clients. They're very quick at passing charges on and not very good at getting rid of the charges. It's like with petrol. They're very good at putting the price up but never bringing it down. But these things are being passed on to clients. So you really do it's a time now where you need to make your money work for you. And I've been in the financial services industry now all my life, and I've seen it is cyclical. It goes up and down, but we have had a very long period now of low interest rates really since the recession. And people are losing money. Inflation, if they say it's a 1%, if you look at your weekly food bill, etc., it's much really gone up 3 or 4%. If your money's not keeping up with that, then you are basically losing money. It's all right saying it's safe in the bank, but how safe is it? If you look at Greece, their money was safe. They still haven't got their money back. You've got these protection things, but it doesn't say when you're going to get your money back. So please look at where you've got your money. You do need some liquid cash. Some cash you can get hands on at any time, but the rest of it, there are some very good low risk investments out there, and I mean low risk. Obviously you can't have no risk or else you get no return, so it's worthwhile considering.
I've never quite understood the premium bonds. I have some. I found them.
I have some, but I've never won in, I won't say how old I am.
That's Ernie, right? The number generator.
Oh,
I think that's the one.
I think it is. I don't
found
know.
some. I think my nan bought them when I was born.
Yeah, I think my mum bought mine when I was born, but I don't
have
know
no idea what to do with them. Do they still run? I don't know.
Yeah, I think they do. I think you could check them on the system. If you go in and put your number in.
Oh, right, because I found them the other day. I was doing some, getting
it's a little bit of
stuff
paper,
organised.
Isn't it? Yeah, I found mine.
Wow.
But I never won.
No.
But some clients come in and they win, £50 a month or something. They're lucky. But it depends how many you've got. It's usually the people who've bought bulk amounts, got a huge amount in there. Obviously, if you've just got a £1 ticket, you're less likely to win than if you've got 30,000 in there or 50,000. But then you've still got to look at the return you're getting on the money you've put in there.
That's all right.
But you should look yours up.
I'm going to investigate further on that.
You might have won 50p over the last 30 years.
30-odd years, that's right. Thank you. Yeah. Let's just do a couple of short bits here. And we haven't really touched on cryptocurrencies. Not that much in here, but you wanted to...
Bitcoin, I know people have made huge amounts of theoretical money on this and actual money, but it does worry me. And over the weekend we saw what I'd say is a huge price correction on Saturday. Most of the Bitcoin, all of them fell by at least 10%, some of them 14% down just over the weekend. So you had Bitcoin drop by 14%, something called Ripple, which I don't know about, 12%, ETH and Lifecoin 13%. So, that was a big price correction, especially for people who've got a large amount of money in there. It's a very volatile currency, I suppose. It's not regulated by anything. It's open to fraud. There have been huge cases of fraud within this Bitcoin. And there was an article in the paper today about Iran. They're doing lots of Bitcoin mining because, obviously, if you've got sanctions on you, you can get Bitcoins, you can buy stuff on the markets. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see. It will obviously stabilise. It will go back up again. But what you've got to remember is if you are investing in something like that, especially if you're going in now, you're going in when it's at a high price anyway. It's more volatile than the stock markets. You are going to see, if you started at inception, then obviously you've made a killing. I had a little bit. I didn't have as much in there as I thought, and I got all excited, and then it wasn't quite what I was expecting. But I noticed that because I think I had £3.04 left in there, just not doing anything, and it went up to 340 something, which for that small amount, that's quite a big jump. Big jump. But then it did drop back. But the thing is with those, when you've got one of the wallets, as they're called, you can see all the currencies in there, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and they all do the same thing. Yeah,
the graphs
they
are all
follow
exactly
each other.
the same.
Like trackers, really.
Yeah.
So we've got that, and then on the funds front, we've got Merlin has bought a fund called Meridian Global Investors. What they're going to do is going to result in streamlining of funds. So they've got a lot of duplication. So say Meridian has got an Asia fund, so is Jupiter. So they're going to be merged. So people who've got investments will notice some changes there. It's not a bad thing. You've got good fund managers will now be kept on, and the not so good ones will go. So that's not a bad thing. It'll make the funds bigger as well. So that's another bit of news there for investors.
That is Lewis Capaldi then. Has Bay Radio gone 10 to 11 in mainland Spain, 10 to 10 the UK and Canaries, and Christina Brady's in from Blacktower Financial Management. So as I always say, lucky to have you, because you've got plenty going on.
I have.
Emails tumbling in as we speak. He's checking through during that there. So we shall let you get off in just a moment. Just wrapping up though, let's mention this again, the Modelo 720, because it affects one or two people. The asset declaration. If you are a tax resident in Spain, you are meant to declare any assets you hold outside Spain that are worth more than €50,000. This is using the exchange rate as at the 31st of December 2019. There are three categories. The first one is your bank accounts. If you've got 10 bank accounts, if you add them all together, you say it equals 45,000 sterling. You think, that's brilliant. No, use the exchange rate, it will come over to €50,000. You should declare every single bank account, even if one's just got £50 in. Next one is pensions, savings, life assurance. Obviously, usually most people are over the 50,000 in that category. And the third one is property you own abroad. So if you've got rental properties in the UK, if you've got property in France, if you've got property in US, Australia, you should declare it. And that has to be done by the end of March. If you've done it before, you do not need to do it every year. And I have to make this clear to everyone. Once you did it, it started in 2012. If you did it then, as long as you haven't sold off any assets completely, or the value of any assets you hold hasn't gone up by more than €20,000, you do not need to resubmit a Modelo 720. So if you've done it
and nothing has risen or you haven't sold anything, you don't need to worry. Everyone says to me, on the Modelo 720, that's been ruled illegal by the EU. No, it hasn't. The EU has said that Spain is well within its rights to request this information. It's the fine they impose if you get anything wrong or you don't declare that are incorrect. So what people are doing is, if they're being fined, they're not paying the fines because obviously it's going through the courts. But it's best to have this information there and to report it. Obviously, it's only if you're tax resident. So it would only be if you were tax resident for 2019 do you need to report it. If you're not becoming tax resident till 2020, or you didn't become tax resident till the end of 2019, so you weren't over your 183 days, and you can prove that you paid your taxes in the UK for that tax year, then obviously if you're only tax resident in 2020, you don't need to do it till March 2021. Okay, it's only if you're a tax resident for 2019 or before. So please just be aware, talk to your hesturier or accountant. They can always give you guidance. If you're not sure, you can always get in touch with us and we can just send you through something that tells you what you need to do. I did see a very good website the other day, which I'll try to find again if people need it. But it's just something keeps you above board. And when I was doing all these Brexit seminars, I still come across people who knew people that thought they could still live under the radar in Spain, not pay any taxes, claim they're resident here. Well, tough news for you. After December 2020, you will be found out. There'll be no health care for you. If you're here more than 90 days, the Spanish will know, because they will get copies of your bank statements, they will ask your bank, and they will come down on you, and they can go back 5 years, and they will find out if you've paid no tax here, and they will fine you. So if you are living here under the radar and you do want to carry on living here, you need to get your residencia before December, and you need to start paying your taxes here. Please, if you want to stay here, do that, or else you may find yourself being chucked out. Okay, I'm not scaremongering, but the people who thought all these years, I've never paid any tax, I've lived here, now's the time to start getting worried. Okay, because if they do find out, they can they can embargo your house, your bank accounts. Please just try and be above board. As I said, regarding the Modelo 720, if you're not sure, please talk to your hesturier or accountant, but you don't need to worry if you've done it before. As I said, nothing's been sold, nothing's gone up more than 20,000. And if you're new, then obviously your hesturier or accountant will help you.
So that's just, it's a declaration that you're not going to be, you're going to get taxed or anything.
No, all it is to keep a tab of your assets. So then when it comes to your income tax return in June, if you say you've got a rental property on your Modelo 720, but you're not saying you've got rental income coming in on your income tax, they can just check it. But you're not taxed on the Modelo 720. You can only get fined if you don't do it or you do something wrong. But as I said, people aren't paying the fines because they're in dispute. So it's just a way of making sure that things tally. Okay, but if you have any questions on anything I've said today about savings, about how to make your savings work better for you, investments that are low risk, anything at all. We've had queries on inheritance tax. What happens after Brexit? Will we still get 100,000 allowance for relatives? It looks like yes, but we don't know. But things like that, or if you are interested in should you be transferring your pension? For most people, the answer is no. For a few people, it's yes. Please get in touch. We are here to help you. The best email is info@blacktowerfm, that stands for financialmanagement.com, or alternatively c.b@blacktowerfm.com, or you can call the office. It's 965058212, or you can email studio@bayradio.fm.
If you forget everything
after
else.
25 years.
Well played.
And they will pass anything on to me. But please don't worry in silence. If you've got any questions, any queries regarding investments, savings, pensions, or general questions regarding finance, please get in touch and we will give you good, honest, independent advice. Blacktower's been going now over 30 years. We're coming up for 35 years. Must be doing something right. We've got a large client base. We're in every country in Europe. We're now in the Americas as well. And in the UK. So we can help you no matter where you are, hopefully. So please be in touch.
Well, as I say, anyone that listens to this regularly will know you know your stuff, and the company does as well, obviously. So get in touch. Blacktowerfm.com is the easiest way to remember. It's the website, Blacktower.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And can I just say, to my husband, I love you. He's been very, very ill. I know I shouldn't say this, and he's been in hospital, has a major operation, and he's recovering well, and I'm so happy for him.
No, we're glad to hear he's doing well. Yeah, I did. It's the first thing I asked you when you came in this morning. So, all right. Well, I know, as I say, you're busy with that and everything else work-wise as well. So, all being well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Bay Radio. Bay Radio.